the equivalent of 690 coal-fired power plants. The huge projected expansion in solar water and space heating in industrial countries could close some existing coal-fired power plants and reduce natural gas use, as solar water heaters replace electric and gas water heaters. In countries such as China and India, however, solar water heaters will simply reduce the need for new coal-fired power plants. One reason for the explosive growth of solar water and space heaters in Europe and China is the economic appeal. On average, in industrial countries these systems pay for themselves from electricity savings in fewer than 10 years. With the cost of rooftop heating systems declining, other countries will likely join Israel and Spain in mandating that all new buildings incorporate rooftop water and space heaters. No longer a passing fad, these rooftop appliances are fast becoming a mainstream source of energy as fossil fuel prices rise. While the direct use of sunlight to heat water has dominated the harnessing of solar energy to date, the world's fastest growing energy source is the solar cells that convert sunlight into electricity. Installations worldwide now total 8,600 megawatts. Although solar cells are still only a minor source of electricity, their use is growing by over 40% annually, doubling every 2 years. In 2006, Germany installed 1,150 megawatts of solar cell generating capacity, making it the first country to install over 1 gigawatt, 1,000 megawatts, in a year. Until recently, the production of solar cells was concentrated in Japan, Germany, and the United States, but several energetic new players have recently entered the industry, featuring companies in China, Taiwan, the Philippines, South Korea, and the United Arab Emirates. China overtook the United States in solar cell production in 2006. Taiwan may do so in 2007. Today there are scores of firms competing in the world market, driving investments in both research and manufacturing. For the nearly 1.6 billion people living in communities not yet connected to an electrical grid, it is now often cheaper to install solar cells rooftop by rooftop than to build a central power plant and a grid to reach potential consumers. For Indian villagers, for example, who have depended on tallow-based candles for their lighting, the monthly payment for a solar cell installation over 30 months is less than the monthly outlay for candles. Villagers in India who are not yet connected to a grid and who depend on kerosene lamps face a similar cost calculation. Installing a home solar electric system in India, including batteries, costs roughly $400. Such systems will power 2, 3, or 4 small appliances or lights, and are widely used in homes and shops in lieu of polluting and increasingly costly kerosene lamps. In 1 year a kerosene lamp burns nearly 20 gallons of kerosene, which at $3 a gallon means $60 per lamp. A solar cell lighting system that replaced only 2 lamps would pay for itself within 4 years. The estimated 1.5 billion kerosene lamps in use today provide only 0.5% of all residential lighting, but account for 29% of residential lighting's CO2 emissions. They use the equivalent of 1.3 million barrels of oil per day, which is equal to roughly half the oil production of Kuwait. Replacing these lamps with solar cell installations would cut world oil use by 1.5% and reduce annual carbon emissions by 52 million tons. For industrial countries, Michael Rogel and his Photon consulting company estimate that by 2010 fully integrated companies that encompass all phases of solar cell manufacturing will be installing systems that produce electricity for 12 carat a kilowatt-hour in sun-drenched Spain and 18 carat a kilowatt-hour in southern Germany. Although solar cell cost will be dropping below those of conventional electricity in many locations, this will not automatically translate into a wholesale conversion to solar cells. But as one energy CEO observes, the Big Bang is underway, with sales of solar cells now doubling every 2 years and likely to continue doing so at least until 2020. The estimated sales for 2008 of over 5,000 megawatts will climb to 320,000 megawatts in 2020. By this time the cumulative installed capacity would exceed 1 million megawatts, 1,000 gigawatts. Although this projection may seem ambitious, it may in fact turn out to be conservative. For one thing, if most of the nearly 1.6 billion people who lack electricity today get it by 2020, it will likely be because they have installed solar home systems. When a villager buys a solar cell system, that person is in effect buying a 25-year supply of electricity. Since there is no fuel cost and very little maintenance, it is the upfront outlay that counts, and that typically requires financing. Recognizing this, the World Bank and the UN Environment Programme have stepped in with programs to help local lenders set up credit systems to finance this cheap source of electricity. An initial World Bank loan has helped 50,000 homeowners in Bangladesh obtain solar cell systems. A second, much larger round of funding will enable 200,000 more families to do the same. Investors are also turning to large-scale solar cell power plants. A 20-megawatt facility under construction in South Korea, scheduled for completion in late 2008, is the largest in the world. It will soon be eclipsed, however, by a 40-megawatt facility being built near Leipzig, Germany, that is scheduled to start supplying electricity by 2009. In Spain, BP Solar contracted to build some 278 small generating facilities with a combined capacity of 25 megawatts. At its headquarters in Mountain View, California, Google, one of the many companies investing in solar electric cells, has installed a 1.6 megawatt array of solar cells to convert sunlight into electricity. More and more countries, states, and provinces are setting solar cell installation goals. Japan, for example, is planning 4,800 megawatts of solar cell generating capacity by 2010, a goal it will likely exceed. The state of California has set a goal of 3,000 megawatts by 2017. On the U.S. East Coast, Maryland is aiming for 1,500 megawatts of solar installations by 2022. And in China, Shanghai is shooting for 100,000 rooftop solar cell installations, though for a city with 6 million rooftops this is only a beginning. Altogether, the global planned economy is projected to have 1,190 gigawatts of solar cell capacity by 2020. Another promising way to harness solar energy uses sunlight to heat water and produce steam to generate electricity. This solar thermal technology, often referred to as concentrated solar power, simply uses reflectors with automated tracking systems to concentrate sunlight on a closed vessel containing water or some other liquid, raising the temperature as high as 750 degrees Fahrenheit to produce steam. California installed 354 megawatts of solar thermal generating capacity nearly 20 years ago, but with cheap fossil fuel-fired electricity, investments in solar thermal power dried up. With fossil fuel prices and concern about climate change both climbing, there is now a resurgence of interest. A 64-megawatt solar thermal power plant completed in 2007 in Nevada, a similar one under construction in Spain, and a 300-megawatt facility proposed in Florida represent the new wave of these facilities. Prominent among the regions with the solar intensity needed to profitably operate solar thermal power plants are the U.S. Southwest, North Africa, Mediterranean Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia, and the desert regions of Pakistan, northwestern India, and northern and western China. The dream of using the Sahara Desert's vast solar resources to supply electricity to Europe may soon become reality. In June 2007, Algeria announced plans to build 6,000 megawatts of solar thermal generating capacity for export by cable to Europe. In July 2007, construction began on a 150-megawatt natural gas/solar hybrid plant, where the gas takes over entirely at night, when there is no sunlight. This plant is located at Renewable, 260 miles south of Algiers, the capital. Painfully aware that its oil and gas exports will not last forever, the Algerian government has created a company, New Energy Algeria, to manage the development and export of its solar energy. Its managing director, Tuf Khazni, says our potential in thermal solar power is 4 times the world's energy consumption. Construction of undersea cables linking the solar thermal generating plants in the Sahara to Europe is planned for 2010-12. The great attraction of solar thermal generation in sunny climates is that it peaks during the day, when air conditioning needs and personal power demands are also peaking. An American Solar Energy Society, ACES, study concluded that the sun-rich southwestern United States, after excluding its less promising areas, has a potential solar power generating capacity of 7,000 gigawatts of electricity, roughly 7 times current U.S. generating capacity from all sources. Assuming that the 30% tax credit for investment in solar generating facilities continues and that the price of carbon climbs to $35 per ton, the ACES study concluded that 80 gigawatts of this generating potential could be developed by 2030. Greenpeace and STF have outlined a worldwide plan to develop 600,000 megawatts of solar thermal power plant capacity by 2040. We suggest a more immediate goal of 200,000 megawatts by 2020, a goal that may well be exceeded as climate change concerns escalate. Energy from the Earth. It is widely known within the energy community that there is enough solar energy reaching the Earth each hour to power the world economy for 1 year. But few people know that the heat in the upper 6 miles of the Earth's crust contains 50,000 times as much energy as found in all the world's oil and gas reserves combined. Despite this abundance, only 9,300 megawatts of geothermal generating capacity have been harnessed worldwide, partly because of the dominance of the oil, gas, and coal industries, which have been providing cheap fuel. By omitting the indirect costs of fossil fuel burning, relatively little has been invested in developing the Earth's geothermal heat resources. Over the last decade, geothermal energy has been growing at scarcely 3% a year. Half the world's generating capacity is concentrated in the United States and the Philippines. 4 other countries, Mexico, Indonesia, Italy, and Japan, account for most of the remainder. Altogether, some 24 countries now convert geothermal energy into electricity. The Philippines, with geothermally generated power supplying 25% of its electricity, and El Salvador, at 22%, are the leaders. Beyond this, an estimated 100,000 thermal megawatts of geothermal energy, roughly 10 times the amount converted to electricity, is used directly without conversion into electricity to heat homes and greenhouses, and as process heat in industry. This includes, for example, the energy used in hot baths in Japan, and to heat homes in Iceland and greenhouses in Russia. An interdisciplinary team of 13 scientists and engineers assembled by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in 2006 assessed U.S. geothermal electrical generating potential, drawing on the latest technologies, including those used by oil and gas companies in drilling and in enhanced oil recovery. The team estimated that enhanced geothermal systems could be used to develop 100,000 megawatts of electrical generating capacity in the United States by 2050, a capacity equal to 250 coal-fired power plants. To fully realize this potential, the MIT team estimated that the government would have to invest up to $1 billion in geothermal research and development in the years immediately ahead, roughly the cost of one large coal-fired power plant. Even without this research commitment, some 61 U.S. geothermal projects were under construction or in development in early 2007. If the United States can develop 100,000 megawatts of geothermal generating capacity, how much could other countries, many of them far more richly endowed, develop with the same technologies? A decade-old estimate for Japan indicated that country could develop 69,000 megawatts of generating capacity.